The Tampa Bay Buccaneers have found their offensive coordinator, and it's absolutely the right choice. That and more on today's live episode of Locked On Bucs.
You are Locked On Buccaneers, your daily Tampa Bay Buccaneers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, and welcome into this live Friday episode of Locked On Bucs, your daily podcast covering the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank you for making Locked On Bucs your first listen or view every single day. Don't forget you can subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, you can follow along on Twitter. I am James Yarcho at JYarcho_Bucs, your host of Locked On Bucs, credentialed member of the media, covering your Tampa Bay Buccaneers as the deputy editor of SB Nation's BucsNation.com. Here with you every Monday through Friday, along with our everydayers. And for that, I want to share my appreciation for your continued support of the show. One of the ways you can support the show is by becoming a Locked On Bucs insider. You're going to get news, the inside scoop, and exclusive content delivered directly to your phone, plus one-on-one conversations with me via text message. You can join the Locked On Bucs insiders by going to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnBucs to sign up. This episode is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers have found their offensive coordinator, and how is that going to affect Baker Mayfield's status with the team? That is coming up in a little bit. But first, let's talk about Liam Coen. Now, the news was dropped early Friday morning by Mike Garafolo and Ian Rappaport that the Bucs are closing in on finalizing a deal with Liam Coen as their offensive coordinator. So it's not officially official yet, but all signs point to Liam Coen being the next offensive coordinator of the Buccaneers. Now, when I had this live show planned, I tweeted it out Thursday night. I sent out a message to my insiders that I was going to do essentially a power ranking of the top 5 offensive coordinator candidates that I had, in my personal opinion, for the Buccaneers based off of who they had either interviewed or scheduled interviews with. Number 1 on my list was Liam Coen. And the more I researched this guy, the more I liked him. But for those that aren't familiar with Coen, here is some background. He has been a coach since 2010, but joined the Los Angeles Rams in 2018 as assistant wide receivers coach. In 2020, he became the assistant quarterbacks coach before leaving for Kentucky to be their offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach. He went back to the Rams as their offensive coordinator in 2022, then back to Kentucky as their offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach last year. He was asked about why he went back to the Rams in 2022, and Coen told the media, quote, "I wanted to continue to learn, not just from the experience of calling plays, but grow schematically, grow as a football coach. I feel like I've been able to do that over the past year, even though the results weren't what we were looking for." Then Coen went on to continue to say, quote, "You scheme up all these great plays, but at the end of the day, it truly is about the players. Having to pivot and adjust to the type of players that we were playing with throughout that season. They weren't our starters. They didn't know all of our offensive schemes from A to Z, so we needed to pivot at times." So what Coen was referring to there, some of you may remember that the Rams lost Stafford and Kupp during that 2022 season. They had 12 different offensive line combinations in the first 12 weeks. And it was Coen that got Baker up to speed when he joined the team late in the season. So a quick overview of his last few years as an offensive coordinator in 2021 with the University of Kentucky. They finished ranked 18th in the NCAA. Will Levis was their quarterback that season. They had 32.3 points per game, which was 36th in the nation, 225.6 passing yards per game, 199.8 rushing yards per game. They averaged 1.8 turnovers per game, 4.8 penalties per game, but they scored a touchdown on 72% of their trips to the red zone. That is solid. That is really, really solid, and obviously something that he looked to build on when he went back to the Rams in 2022. But mind you, he wasn't the play caller for the most part. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a little bit. The 2022 Rams finished with 372.1 yards per game. That was 8th in the NFL. 99 rush yards per game. That was 25th, but one spot ahead of the 2022 Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They had 273.1 passing yards per game. That was 5th in the NFL. And remember, Stafford got hurt. Baker Mayfield was the starter for part of that Rams season. 27.1 points per game. That was 7th in the NFL, and converted 43.9% of third downs. That was also 7th in the NFL. But Coen decides to go back to the University of Kentucky last year, again, taking on the offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach role. They finished with 339.5 yards per game, 211.2 pass yards per game, 127.8 rush yards per game, only converted 38% of third downs. Kind of a big drop off from the success that he had the year before with the Rams. And then they finished with 29.1 points per game. That was 58th in the NCAA, and about 3.5 points per game of a drop off compared to his 2021 season as Kentucky's offensive coordinator. Now, this guy has called plays at every level. Even though he wasn't the main play caller for the Rams, there was a stretch in 2022 where Sean McVay ceded the play calling duties over to Coen. He comes from the McVay tree. He has worked with some incredible coaches, including Zach Robinson, who was hired as the Eagles offensive coordinator and was a candidate for the Bucs, and Jake Peetz, who was also a candidate for the Bucs before they zeroed in on Coen on Friday morning. But not only do I think that Coen has done a really good job with the Rams and the University of Kentucky. I mean, nobody thinks of Kentucky as a football school, right? But under his offense, they finished 18th in the country. They won a bowl game, and his quarterback was supposed to be taken in the first round of the draft, ends up dropping to the very beginning of the second round. But Will Levis was a starter for the Tennessee Titans this past season. And I think the work that he's done and the people that he has worked with and been around is going to help spark this team. And I realize he was a late addition to the candidate list, but he was my number one choice from the candidates that we knew about for a reason. And it was because I thought that he made the best choice for the job. Again, this is a guy that comes from the McVay tree. He's been around some stellar coaching, has really had the opportunity to learn, and he wants to be the play caller. That's why he left the Rams. His passion, his drive, his joy comes from scheming up these plays and then getting to call these plays. So, that's why you had kind of that back and forth bounce between the Rams and the Kentucky Wildcats. He was a wide receivers coach. He was a quarterbacks coach, but he wanted to be a play caller. So he goes to Kentucky. Then McVay wants him back. He says, okay, I'm going to come back, but still was missing that thing that he loved so much and loved so dearly. And that's why he goes back to Kentucky. Real quick, I do want to jump over to the comment section real quick. We got Demon Hunter, as always, in the chat. We got Randy Jewell in there. We got Fausto in there. Jay Jones is in the chat. Fausto says, didn't even know we interviewed this guy. LOL. Yep. He was a late addition to the list of candidates, but very impressive resume, very impressive interview, and the Bucs fell in love with this guy. Jay Jones in the chat says, any OC off the McVay tree automatically comes with some imagination. I like it. Need to scheme ways to get Evans and Godwin open. We do have Fausto. Yes, absolutely. Robinson went to the Falcons with Raheem Morris. My apologies, not the Eagles. He did go to the Falcons. Little brain fart on my part. So thank you for that, Fausto, in the chat. But how does this hire affect Baker Mayfield's future with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers? That is coming up next on this episode of Locked On Bucs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Are you the kind of driver that likes to push things a little further? Ever wonder what adventure could be around the next corner? Our friends at Nissan have a lineup of SUVs with the capabilities to take your adventure to the next level. The 2024 Nissan Rogue is perfect for city drives and great escapes. With class-exclusive Google built-in is your always updating assistant to call on for almost anything. Gone are the days of connecting your phone. Google Assistant, Google Maps, and Google Play Store are built right in to the 12.3-inch HD touchscreen infotainment system. The 2024 Rogue is the perfect midsize crossover for your next adventure. Nissan's incredible lineup also includes my personal favorite, the 2024 Nissan Pathfinder. It has room up to 8, an expansive cargo capacity, and advanced available 4x4 capability. With 284 horsepower and up to 6,000 pounds towing, when adventure calls, the Pathfinder is there to answer. Take the Nissan Rogue, Nissan Pathfinder, or Nissan Armada and go find your next big adventure. Shop nissanusa.com. Thank you again for making Locked On Bucs your first listen review every single day. Everydayers, make sure you are coming back on Monday. I am going to be joined by Tristan Ferris, who covers University of Kentucky Wildcat football. He is going to be talking with me about all the things that Liam Coen is going to bring to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Really excited to have Tristan on the show. In the meantime, Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. So with Liam Coen being the guy, how is this going to affect the potential return of Baker Mayfield to the Bucs? Coen was vital to Baker Mayfield's integration with the Los Angeles Rams in 2022 and was a big fan of Baker Mayfield's, as was Sean McVay back in 2018 when he was drafted. That's why they brought him to LA when they had the opportunity, and that's why the Rams wanted to bring Baker back this past season. When Mayfield joined the Rams, Coen said, quote, I really liked him coming out. I remember watching him a ton. He's a competitor. He tries to do everything to win football games. Sean obviously liked him at the time as well and had some conversations with him. I think like during the combine or something, just liked him as a dude. So I don't think that Coen is taking this job or that the Bucs pursue him in the way that they did if Baker Mayfield isn't in the picture. And to me, not only is Coen a young, intelligent mind, but it's a guy that they sought out that knows and likes working with Mayfield. So Mayfield, who, for those that didn't see, on Thursday night won the precision passing competition at the Pro Bowl Skills Contest, was talking about how they were kind of waiting to see who the play caller was going to be before any serious talks started heating up. That up to this point, his agent and the Bucs had only engaged in really preliminary talks. However, Friday morning at Pro Bowl practice, Baker was informed of the Bucs working to finalize a deal with Coen and said, quote, now that they're finalizing with Liam, I think talks will pick up. end quote. Then in regards to Coen himself, Baker said, quote, I love the system. Playing in LA, obviously, then under Dave in a similar system. I love the approach, how the run sets up the pass and everything like that. There's a lot of integral parts where you can give a lot of complex looks to trick a defense, but Liam's smart in how he wants to approach it. He's got the mindset. He's a hard worker. He's really passionate, and his energy, the guys feed off of that, end quote. So everything is really lining up for the Bucs offense with this, again, not finalized, but this probable hire of Liam Coen at offensive coordinator. Retaining Baker Mayfield at quarterback was probably a big focal point in the conversations between Jason Light, Todd Bowles, and Liam Coen. And something else that I want to point out here, let's not overlook the potential impact that this hire will have on Mike Evans. So with Coen having worked with Sean McVay as the quarterback's coach and the wide receivers coach, and then later as offensive coordinator with the Los Angeles Rams, Evans can take a look at this hire and look at what the Rams did with Cooper Kupp, realizing that that's going to be his role in this offense, and everything is going to run through him. He already expressed how much, he being Mike Evans, already expressed how much he loves Baker Mayfield, how much he enjoyed working with him, the chemistry that they had developed that was almost immediate, and then you saw it continue to get better throughout the season. Now, not only do they have a chance to build on that chemistry, but they can do so in an offense that is going to highlight and spotlight Mike Evans, maybe even more than Dave Canales did this past season, where Mike had another incredible year. He was tied for the NFL lead in touchdown receptions. He was a Pro Bowl, selection at the wide receiver position out of the NFC. This offense will cater to Mike Evans, and that is going to be an incredibly intriguing thing for him to know what this offense can be, know what his role can be in it, know that Baker Mayfield is, at this point, I would say 98.5% going to be the guy at the quarterback position. This is a big hire that goes just beyond the quarterback position for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And something else that I want to mention before I jump back into the chat, because I see you guys in there talking about it. I mentioned right after the season ended some of the pending free agents and some of the potential cap casualties. And one of those cap casualties to me was Russell Gage. Unfortunately, injuries derailed the opportunity that Russell Gage had in this offense, on this football team. And I think the Bucs are going to cut their losses and save quite a bit of money against the cap. An interesting name to think about now, given the connection of Liam Coen and Baker Mayfield to the Rams, is Van Jefferson. If Van Jefferson can come in on almost kind of a prove-it deal, the way that Baker Mayfield did this past year, or the way that Russell Gage kind of did, you have your number 3 receiver locked and loaded. And it is a guy that can run every route on the tree. He's a deep threat. He had great chemistry with Baker when he and Ben Skoronski were essentially his top 2 targets in LA. He worked closely with Coen as the offensive coordinator, and before that as the wide receivers coach. So that's a guy that Coen and Baker are incredibly familiar with, that can come in, already have a basic understanding of what Coen's offense is going to be, and can slide in immediately as the number 3 wide receiver for probably a pretty cheap price. So an interesting dynamic to kind of think about here on the heels of this news of Liam Coen being the guy. But now that would be one more position that the Bucs don't have to worry about in the draft when they have other positions of dire need that need to be addressed. I really think that fit could be interesting, and we're going to get more into that later on. I want to jump back in the chat before we hit our next break. We have Lakita Misner saying Liam was part of the quick integration. Absolutely. Baker Mayfield joined the team on a Tuesday. He was playing on Thursday night, and Coen was a major part of getting him up to speed to be able to even be comfortable enough putting him in a football game and leading a come from behind victory. He was huge. So let's see. We got Bat W. Like this hire, was so worried. There was, and I tried to tell you guys, there was nothing to worry about. The Buccaneers interviewed 10 candidates last year. They were interviewing other candidates this year. And it was a process where, again, you want to find the right guy, not the first guy. And I think the Buccaneers have absolutely done that in finding the right guy for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And then Bat W also says, ooh, like that idea, referencing Van Jefferson. We got Demon Hunter in the chat saying Van would be a major upgrade at wide receiver 3. Absolutely. Absolutely. And then you still have Trey Palmer. You still have, some other wide receivers. You probably going to bring back, maybe you don't bring back David Moore. Maybe David Moore ends up in Carolina with Dave Canales. But I would like the idea of David Moore coming back and you kind of work him in as well. But Van Jefferson as wide receiver 3 could be really, really interesting for the Bucs. And the more I talk about it, the more I think about it, the more I like it. But plenty of time before we get to that. Coming up next, what are some other people saying about Liam Coen as a coach? That is next here on Locked On Bucs. At the start of every new year, every small business owner is asking themselves the same question. What's the one move I can make that'll make my business go to the next level in 2024? LinkedIn Jobs knows that your success all depends on the team you surround yourself with. And that's why LinkedIn Jobs has created the tools to help find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just another job board. LinkedIn has a vast network of more than 1 billion professionals, which makes it the best place to hire. And hiring is easy when you have that many quality candidates. So easy, in fact, that 86% of small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs number 1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. And they find their qualified candidates within 24 hours. LinkedIn also knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats and might not have the time or resources to hire. Thankfully, with LinkedIn, the process is intuitive, quick, and easy. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Did the game go to timeout? Time to order in with DoorDash. Is it halftime? That's ordering time. 2-minute warning. You got it. That's your cue to order in. Order pizza, wings, soda, burgers, even just buns on DoorDash and get it all delivered without missing the game. You can even order your team's gear from local spots and have it dropped off directly to your door. If you need a little change up in the luck that you're having come halftime. I know with my kids' crazy schedules, there's a lot of eating on the run, and sometimes I'll place a DoorDash order when we're leaving the ice rink or the basketball court so that dinner is waiting for us when we pull in the driveway. All of your favorite restaurant stores, from retail to grocery, are on the app, so you can shop everything that you need to get game day ready. Get 50% off up to a $10 value when you spend $15 or more on your first order when you download the DoorDash app and enter code LOCKED23. Subject to change, terms apply. That's 50% off up to a $10 value when you spend $15 or more on your first order when you download the DoorDash app and enter code LOCKED, the number 2, the number 3, subject to change, terms apply. Wrapping things up here on a live Friday edition of the Locked On Bucs podcast. Want to jump into the chat again real quick. I do see your comment, Laquita. Thank you for correcting me. And anyone in the chat, if I mispronounce your name, if you want to spell it out phonetically in the chat, I will do my best to remember. I can't guarantee that I will because I have the memory of a goldfish, but I will do my best to try to remember and make sure that I'm saying everybody's name right. I appreciate all of you being in the chat. I want to make sure that I'm respectful to each and every one of you. I did see another comment that I wanted to jump over to. Fausto in the chat says, what do you think we do with the remaining open coaching positions with this hire? I got you, man. I'm going to talk about it. But first, do have to give a shout out to Adam Silvan of Pewter Report. Shout out to the guys at Pewter Report, good friends of mine. He caught up with Rams running back Kyren Williams at the Pro Bowl to ask about the hire of Coen and what he brings to Tampa. And Kyren Williams said, quote, he brings a really good system. He has a really good grasp on the run game, and he can bring that to the Bucs. He's a great person and coach. He's a person who loves ball and loves his players, end quote. And then Sean McVay has spoken about Coen numerous times, but one quote that jumped out to me was back in 2022 when he brought Coen back to the Rams as the offensive coordinator. And McVay said, quote, he's got great capacity for the game. The best coaches adjust to their players. What do they do best? And how do we make that come to life and create an identity? Guys, they respond to him. An incredible understanding of offensive football as well as defensive football. And I think that helps put together great game plans and know how you want to build on our offensive philosophy. How smart he is, the way he sees the game, how hard he works at it, and then his ability to communicate with our players and coaches is going to be a key factor in why I have such confidence in him leading our way offensively, end quote. Glowing words from Sean McVay about the intelligence, the work ethic, everything that Liam Coen brought to the 2022 Rams and hopefully is now bringing to the 2024 and beyond Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Hopefully it's not another one and done situation, but I saw Greg Allman on Twitter say teams having a problem with their coordinators being one and done because they are getting head coaching opportunities is actually a good problem to have. That means that you're making the right hires to begin with. So, glass half full approach to the loss of Dave Canales. But of course, now that brings in Liam Coen as offensive coordinator. And look, he appears to check all the boxes. And I'll go back to his bouncing between the Rams and the University of Kentucky. And one of the big reasons he returned after just 1 year is his love and desire to call plays. And I mentioned that in the first segment. And when you find a coach that has such a drive and a passion and a desire to do the job in its entirety, that's a really important quality. A lot of people, no matter what their job is, if they're in charge of hiring someone, regardless of the industry, they're not looking for the person that only wants to do part of the job, right? They're looking for someone that has a drive and a passion to do the entire job and maybe even beyond. So him knowing the situation in Los Angeles, that he was going to get to be the offensive coordinator, but in name only. And yes, he would get to work on developing game plans and he would get to work on developing the offense. That was still Sean McVay's offense. Now, Coen learned from that, which is great, but he wanted more. He wanted to be the guy who was implementing the offense and executing the offense on Sundays, playing that chess match against opposing defensive coordinators. And I go back to that quote by Sean McVay talking about his incredible understanding of defensive football. You want that in your offensive coordinator because they have to play that game of chess against the person on the other side of the sideline, on the other side of the field. And they have to work out, okay, I see you're doing this. I need to do this. I'm going to do this, and you're going to expect me to do something else. And now I'm going to expose you. That's the brain and the mindset that you want in your offensive coordinator. And even though Coen did get the opportunity for a little bit to call plays in 2022, McVay wasn't ever going to give that up permanently. And not only that, but his vast experience, Cohen's vast experience in a lot of talented offenses means he's going to have some talented coaches. Fausto, I'm talking to you. He's going to have some talented coaches that he has worked with and he is familiar with and he trusts to come in and fill out the rest of this staff. You know, an interesting tidbit that I think it was Peter Schrager dropped. I don't know if this guy wants to get into coaching, but everybody has to start somewhere, right? The Bucs are looking for a wide receivers coach. Liam Coen's roommate in college was Victor Cruz, the former wide receiver of the New York Giants. Antoine Randall had to start somewhere. He was a heck of a wide receiver for Bruce Arians in Pittsburgh. Then he became Bruce Arians' wide receivers coach for Tampa Bay. Now he's a wide receivers coach in Detroit. You take a look at Byron Leftwich, and although that ended on a little bit of a sour note, he was a great quarterback for Bruce Arians and other coaches. Was a intern essentially with the Arizona Cardinals, and Bruce really loved him. And then he got his opportunity to be an offensive coordinator. These guys have to start somewhere, right? So Coen has worked with guys on McVay's staff there in Los Angeles. He's worked with, varying staffs at the University of Kentucky. But remember, his experience goes all the way back to 2010. This guy is 38 years old. He's a very young guy with a lot of experience that is now going to be able to start reaching out and start plucking some of these other people to come in and fill out the rest of his offensive staff. Nothing is ever a sure thing in the NFL, but if I'm a Bucs fan or if I'm a Bucs player, I'm pretty excited about the possibilities with Liam Coen coming in to be the offensive coordinator. Going to hit the chat one more time before we get out of here. Let's see. Christopher says, do they ever sign any of the guys that they interviewed? Well, I mean, you can only sign one, right? And it looks like Liam Coen is going to be that one. Bat W says, yeah, I think we got a good hire. Who else do we have in the chat here? We got La Quinta saying Kentucky made strides this year. They did a pretty solid job with what they had. I will say that much. And it wasn't as good as the offense in Kentucky that Coen ran in 2021, but it was still pretty solid. And again, nobody thinks of Kentucky as a football school, and they're in the SEC. They're going up against the Alabamas, the LSUs, the Floridas. Like, he had a pretty solid offense and a pretty solid team there in Kentucky, given what they're up against. And the fact that people want to go there to play basketball, not play football. But we will talk more about Liam Coen's experience in Kentucky coming up on Monday, when I am joined by somebody who covers Kentucky football. Again, I will be joined by Tristan Ferris, who covers the University of Kentucky, not just football, covers basketball, covers all University of Kentucky sports. Really excited to get his insight into what Liam Coen is going to bring. That's going to do it for this episode. Again, thank you all for joining me on this one. Check out everything that I'm doing over at BucsNation.com. Follow on Twitter at Locked On Bucs, at @JYarcho_Bucs. Become a Locked On Bucs insider by going to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnBucs to sign up. Hope you all have an absolutely outstanding day. Stay safe, stay healthy, fire the cannons. Thank you so much for joining me right here on Locked On Bucs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.